Ancient engineers unlocked a secret for turning stone and water into living energy. Entire cities once thrived on systems powered solely by gravity and the flow of water, creating a sustainable harmony with the planet that we have since forgotten. You will discover the lost principles that allowed civilizations to build self-renewing infrastructure that lasted for centuries. We will uncover why a massive desert empire relied on hidden underground rivers, and how a mountain city transformed itself into a fertile garden. This knowledge holds a key to solving our own modern crises of water and energy. What does it mean to build a world that truly works with nature rather than trying to dominate it? These ancient builders did not see a river as a mere resource. They saw it as a living artery of the earth itself. For an Incan priest, a mountain stream was not just water. It was living silver, a sacred force that demanded reverence even as it was harnessed. This worldview transformed engineering from a technical chore into a form of sacred dialogue. Across the globe, from the high Andes to the river valleys of China, a shared philosophy emerged. It held that stone held memory, that water carried spirit, and that humanity's role was to work within the rhythms of a breathing, conscious world. This was the essence of the Tao, or the Way, described by philosophers like Lao Tzu. It taught that true power comes not from opposing the natural flow, but from moving with it. Imagine the difference this makes. Our modern approach often tries to conquer a river, to bend it to our will with brute force. Theirs was an act of co-creation. They sought to listen to the land, to understand its inclinations, and then to gently amplify its own energies. A spring was not just tapped, it was invited into a partnership. Canals were not just dug, they were proposed pathways that the water itself would agree to follow. This deep reverence produced systems that were not only efficient but inherently resilient and self-renewing. They built with the long term in mind, creating structures that have endured for 1,000 years, far outlasting our own concrete and steel. The spiritual significance of their work was inseparable from its practical function. Every aqueduct was a prayer, every terrace was a testament to a partnership with the planet. How would our cities look today if we saw our infrastructure not as a war against nature, but as a continuing conversation with a living world? This foundational philosophy of harmony was the invisible blueprint for everything they built. That first principle, the mastery of gravity, began with a simple observation. A nameless Mesopotamian engineer thousands of years ago watched water flow downhill and saw more than a current. He saw a possibility. In that moment, the idea of the first irrigation channel was born, a concept that would revolutionize agriculture and allow cities to rise from the desert. Gravity became their invisible, tireless engine. It required no fuel, produced no waste, and was perpetually available, a constant force they learned to invite into their designs. To do this, they cultivated an intuitive understanding of the land itself. They became masters of hydrology and topography, reading the subtle language of the earth with simple, brilliant tools. A water level, a sighting pole, these were their instruments for mapping contours we would need satellites to see. With this profound connection to the landscape, they designed aqueducts with slopes of breathtaking precision. The gradient was often a drop of just a few centimeters for every kilometer of distance. This gentle, perfect decline maintained a constant, manageable flow, a quiet conversation between stone and water that could last for centuries. The Roman Aqua Appia stands as a monumental testament to this principle. It relied entirely on gravity to journey over 16 kilometers, its waters flowing tirelessly into the heart of the Eternal City. This was the core of their genius, working with the Earth's pull instead of fighting against it. They transformed passive water into active, life-giving energy simply by understanding where it wanted to go. But mastering gravity was only the beginning. It was the first step in a far more complex and wondrous process of energetic conversion. But that gentle flow of water, guided by gravity, was only the beginning of its journey. To truly build a civilization, ancient engineers had to master the art of conservation, learning to save water for the seasons of scarcity. This second principle transformed their systems from mere conduits into living reservoirs of energy. Picture the vast, silent barrays of Angkor in ancient Cambodia. These immense artificial lakes captured the torrential monsoon rains, holding this captured life force to sustain a population of over 1 million people through the long, dry months. This was the ultimate form of energy banking. They were storing the immense potential energy of water held at a height. Then, when the time was right, they would release it, converting that stored potential into the kinetic energy that powered irrigation for vast rice paddies, provided drinking water, and even turned simple machinery. These engineers became true masters of the entire hydrological cycle. They built massive tanks in Sri Lanka, breathtaking stepwells in India, and vast cisterns across the Roman world. Each of these structures acted as a giant battery for their civilization, storing not just water but time itself. Nowhere was this more critical than in the desert. The Nabateans, who carved their capital city of Petra from rose-red cliffs, perfected rainwater harvesting in one of the most arid environments on Earth. They did not fight the sporadic, violent flash floods that roared through their canyons. Instead, they welcomed them. With intricate networks of channels and dams, they captured that destructive, unpredictable deluge and funneled it into countless cisterns carved directly into the solid rock. In doing so, they performed a kind of magic. They transformed a brief, chaotic burst of water into a reliable, life-sustaining resource that lasted the entire year. This was a profound demonstration of foresight. They were turning the fleeting temporal energy of a rainy season into a continuous, living system. By strategically impounding water, they created a stable foundation of power, setting the stage for that stored energy to be unleashed in even more dynamic and ingenious ways. The true power of this ancient wisdom is revealed not in isolated structures, but in the creation of entire cities that lived and breathed with water. Civilizations like the Aztecs did not simply build near a water source. They wove water into the very fabric of their urban existence, creating what historians call hydraulic civilizations. At the heart of their empire stood Tenochtitlan, a marvel of engineering erected on a lake. Here, canals were not just for transport. They were the city's main streets, bustling with canoes and lined with grand buildings. But the real genius lay in the chinampas, the so-called floating gardens. These were not actually floating, but rather incredibly fertile artificial islands constructed from layers of mud and vegetation dredged from the lakebed. This transformed a vast, unproductive swamp into the most productive agricultural system in the world, a grid of rich soil constantly fed by the nutrient-rich canal waters. The entire city functioned as a single, symbiotic organism, its health and prosperity directly tied to its harmonious relationship with the aquatic environment. This deep integration extended to every aspect of urban life. Gravity-driven aqueducts like the one from Chapultepec brought fresh spring water into the city center, feeding public fountains and baths. This was not a luxury. It was a cornerstone of public health, providing clean water and sanitation on a scale Europe would not see for centuries. The constant flow of water through open sewers carried waste away, while the canals and the lake itself acted as a massive heat sink, naturally regulating the city's temperature. Even simple industries were powered by this current, with water mills grinding grain for the massive population. The energy of moving water was not just a utility. It was the lifeblood of the metropolis, making it cleaner, healthier, and immeasurably more prosperous. This seamless fusion of hydraulic engineering and urban design represents a pinnacle of ancient ecological thinking. The city was not placed upon the land, it was grown from it, a testament to a philosophy where infrastructure served both people and planet. From this grand, city-wide scale of living energy, the final piece of the puzzle takes us to a far more intimate and sacred space. Deep beneath the sun-scorched deserts of ancient Persia, a hidden river flowed. It was not carved by nature but by human hands, a masterpiece of subterranean engineering known as the Kanat. This was water mining in its most elegant form. The system began high in the mountains where workers located a water-bearing aquifer. From this life-giving source, they would dig a master well. Then, with astonishing precision, they began excavating a gently sloping tunnel, just large enough for a single person to crawl through, that would carry the water downhill for dozens of kilometers. At regular intervals, they dug vertical shafts straight down to the tunnel below. These shafts served a dual purpose. They provided crucial ventilation for the diggers, and for centuries after, allowed access for the generations of maintenance crews who would keep the water flowing. The genius of the Kanat slope was absolute. It was just steep enough to let gravity pull the water along, yet so gentle that it created a slow, steady flow that did not erode the tunnel walls. And because the entire river ran underground, not a single drop was lost to the relentless desert sun. This was more than infrastructure. It was a secret shared with the earth itself. The Kanat did not conquer the desert. It simply invited water through it, creating lush, blooming oases in places where life should not have been possible. The knowledge required was immense. The builders, known as Mukanis, had to possess an intuitive feel for geology and hydrology. They judged the slope by the stars at night and by the feel of the water on their skin. This was not a project for a single lifetime. It was a communal covenant, a project passed from father to son, with entire villages depending on its success and sharing in the responsibility for its upkeep. The technology was so powerful it spread across the ancient world, from the oases of North Africa to the arid stretches of China, and even as far as the high deserts of the Americas. The Kanat stands as a quiet monument to a different kind of power, one that works with the Earth's hidden energies rather than stripping them bare. It forces us to ask a profound question. What if our greatest technological achievements are not those that dominate the planet, but those that so perfectly harmonize with it they become almost invisible? The stones themselves seem to whisper secrets. Beyond the visible flow of water and the undeniable pull of gravity, ancient engineers were guided by a profound belief in an invisible web of energy that coursed through the earth itself. This was the esoteric dimension of their craft, where engineering became a form of geomancy, a sacred art of aligning structures with the planet's own vital currents. The placement of a temple or the course of an aqueduct was never arbitrary. It was a deliberate act of connection, a way to tap into what many cultures called telluric or earth energy. The builders of the Great Pyramid at Giza were not merely stacking colossal blocks with impossible precision. They were orienting this artificial mountain to the cardinal directions with an error of less than a single degree, aligning it with the pole star and the sun's path, as if tuning a massive instrument to the harmonics of the cosmos. They, like the architects of Stonehenge on its windswept plain, were likely mapping their work onto a hypothesized grid of planetary energy lines, creating a resonant chamber for forces we are only beginning to comprehend. This principle of sacred alignment was codified through the universal language of sacred geometry. Across the ancient world, from the temples of India to the cathedrals of medieval Europe, builders employed perfect ratios like the golden mean and the proportions of the Fibonacci sequence. They believed these forms were not just aesthetically pleasing, but that they literally resonated with the fundamental life force of the universe. A structure built with these proportions was thought to hum with a higher vibration, to be alive in a way that a randomly shaped building could never be. This belief directly influenced the flow of water, the very lifeblood of their systems. At sites like Machu Picchu, water channels were carefully carved and positioned along these hypothesized energetic pathways. In Greek healing temples such as Epidaurus, sacred springs and intricate water channels were integral to the therapeutic process, suggesting a powerful synergy between the flowing water and the site's purported energetic properties. The water was not just cleansing the body, it was seen as a conductor, a medium for amplifying and purifying the terrestrial currents for healing and spiritual elevation. Even the choice of building material was a conscious energetic decision. Why did the Egyptians go to such monumental effort to quarry and erect obelisks from solid granite? Beyond their symbolic power, granite possesses known piezoelectric properties. This means that when subjected to mechanical stress, such as the subtle vibrations of the earth or even the pressure of sound waves, it can generate a small electrical charge. Were these ancient builders, through intuition or lost knowledge, selecting stones that could actively transduce energy, turning the very vibrations of the planet into a subtle, ambient field? While modern science debates these interpretations, the consistent patterns across disparate cultures are impossible to ignore. They point to a unified worldview where the physical and the energetic were inseparable. The grand finale of this sacred engineering often reveals itself not to the eye but to the ear. The very stones of their temples could sing. In the echoing darkness of a Maya cenote, the steady drip of water was more than a source of moisture. It was a musician, its rhythm hitting precise resonant frequencies that filled the cavern with a palpable, humming energy. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate design feature seen across the ancient world, where engineers wove the physics of sound directly into their water systems. They seem to grasp a truth that modern science is only now verifying, that sound and vibration have a profound power to structure water itself. Picture water flowing through a narrow, carved channel in an Egyptian temple. As it constricts and accelerates, it produces a deep, resonant tone, a constant hum that vibrates through the stone. Researchers now suggest these specific frequencies could alter the molecular arrangement of water, potentially making it more bioavailable for crops or more potent for ceremonial use. This was hydraulic engineering as a form of sacred music. They were not just moving water, they were tuning it. One of the most compelling physical phenomena they might have harnessed is called cavitation. This occurs when fast-flowing water creates millions of microscopic vacuum bubbles. These bubbles instantly collapse with incredible force, releasing tiny bursts of energy, light, and sound. It is a process we use today in advanced cleaning technologies. Ancient engineers, observing the way water churned through specific carved passages, could have noticed its enhanced ability to clean, to aerate, and to seemingly energize the water, even without understanding the physics behind the implosions. The ultimate expression of this acoustic mastery might lie deep within the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta, an underground labyrinth carved from solid limestone. Certain chambers in this sacred space resonate at a specific frequency that profoundly affects the human body and mind. If water was present in basins or channels within these rooms, as some theories propose, the amplified chants of priests would not just fill the air. They would directly interact with the water, turning the entire chamber into a powerful resonator. This points to a truly holistic vision. The life force of their systems was not merely the water's physical flow, but its vibrational song. The energy was both seen and heard, a symphony of motion and sound that gave their creations a truly living quality. Yet this invisible vibrational energy was always in service of a very tangible physical purpose. The rhythmic, powerful thrum of a Roman watermill was the sound of an ancient industrial revolution. Its massive wooden wheel, turned by the relentless flow of an aqueduct, ground grain into flour day and night with a tireless strength no team of animals or slaves could ever match. This was the direct conversion of living energy into mechanical labor, a technological leap that happened centuries before the steam engine. The first water wheels, documented in the Hellenistic world, were quickly adapted for a breathtaking array of tasks. They operated giant bellows that roared life into iron forges, powered saws that sliced through timber, and turned heavy trip hammers that crushed ore or pounded cloth in a process called fulling. This was not just about convenience, it was a fundamental shift in productivity, freeing human and animal power for other pursuits and laying the groundwork for economic power on an unprecedented scale. In China, the applications grew even more sophisticated. Ingenious water-powered reciprocators and chain pumps lifted water to higher fields for irrigation, turning arid land into fertile soil. But the ambition did not stop at agriculture. The same flowing force that ground grain was also harnessed to operate complex astronomical instruments, linking the power of a river directly to the measurement of the heavens. The true genius of these systems, however, lay in their integration. A single water source would be choreographed to perform a cascade of tasks. The same channel that first turned a mill wheel for grinding grain would then continue its downhill journey, its flow still strong enough to power a trip hammer for forging metal, and finally be channeled into a fulling mill for finishing cloth. This was a masterclass in efficient energy cascading, where every last bit of the water's motive force was extracted and put to use. This widespread utilization of water as a prime mover reveals a society with a deeply sophisticated, almost intuitive grasp of energy transfer and mechanical advantage. They understood how to gear wheels to increase torque or speed, how to translate circular motion into a back and forth hammer blow, and how to position their machines to capture the maximum energy from a given flow. Their mechanical prowess, however, was perfectly matched by an equally advanced understanding of the water itself. They were not just building machines that used water. They were building machines that worked with it, machines that were partners in the river's enduring song. This seamless fusion of hydraulic science and mechanical innovation points toward a final, breathtaking achievement, a place where all these principles of living energy converged into a single, self-sustaining whole. The true marvel of a Roman aqueduct was not its grand arches, but the invisible science flowing within its channel. This was not a simple stone gutter. It was a precision instrument for managing energy, a masterpiece of empirical physics built centuries before the formulas existed. The engineers who designed them possessed a deep, intuitive understanding of fluid dynamics. They calculated flow rates with remarkable accuracy, carefully balancing the channel's width, the water's depth, and the subtle, perfect slope of its descent. This was not a matter of guesswork. It was a calculated effort to maintain a consistent, powerful delivery of water pressure across dozens of kilometers, ensuring that every public fountain in Rome flowed with vigor. The journey of the water itself was a carefully orchestrated purification process. Before the water even entered the city, it would pass through massive sedimentation tanks. Here, the flow would slow, allowing grit and sediment to settle out, a simple yet brilliant first step in creating clean drinking water for a metropolis. But managing the sheer force of that descending water was another challenge entirely. In places where the aqueduct dropped sharply from a high elevation, the built-up pressure could have shattered the pipes and channels below. The Roman solution was the ingenious drop tower. This structure would interrupt the steep fall, allowing the water to tumble into a deep basin, dissipating its destructive energy before continuing its journey at a manageable pressure. This was energy management in its purest form. The very materials they used were a testament to their chemical ingenuity. Roman concrete was a miracle of its age, and its secret ingredient was pozzolana, a volcanic ash. When mixed with lime, it created a hydraulic cement that could actually set and harden underwater, making their aqueducts, bridges, and harbors incredibly resilient to constant moisture. This was the difference between a structure that lasted for decades and one that has endured for millennia. Perhaps most profound was their focus on preserving the living quality of the water itself. The stone channels kept the water cool and shaded. The constant, gentle motion over specially designed riffles and cascades aerated the water, infusing it with life-giving oxygen. From its mountain source to the city's heart, the aqueduct was designed not just to convey water, but to sustain it. This legacy of integrated water science did not end with the fall of Rome. It flowed through history, influencing the builders of the Renaissance and shaping the very foundations of modern civil engineering. Descending into a stepwell in India feels like entering an inverted palace. These breathtaking structures, known as baolis, were architectural marvels carved directly into the earth, not reaching for the sky, but digging deep to embrace the water table. The most famous of them all, Chand Baori, is a staggering 13 stories deep, a symmetrical cascade of 3,500 perfectly carved steps descending into a cool, dark abyss. This was far more than a simple well. It was a subterranean temple dedicated to water itself, a hub of community life, a place of pilgrimage, and a masterpiece of passive climate control. The entire design was a brilliant response to the rhythm of the seasons. As the water level dropped during the long, dry months, the intricate staircase provided continuous access, allowing people to descend and follow the receding life source. Meanwhile, the deep, enclosed structure created a remarkable natural phenomenon. The vast, exposed surface area of the water, combined with the stone steps, worked through evaporative cooling, pulling heat from the air and creating a refreshing microclimate that offered respite from the blistering heat above. This was natural air conditioning, engineered centuries before the invention of mechanical systems. But the genius did not stop there. The incredible architectural complexity, with its countless pillars, arched galleries, and ornate pavilions, was not merely decorative. This stone forest was structurally essential, bracing the entire excavation against the immense pressure of the surrounding soil. These elements also carved out shaded spaces for social gatherings, for merchants to sell their wares, for travelers to rest, and for spiritual rituals to be performed in the presence of the sacred water. The stepwell represents a profound fusion of utility, artistry, and spirituality, a place where every aspect of life revolved around a deep, architectural relationship with water. This same intimate, mountainous relationship with a life-giving resource was mirrored on the other side of the world, in the high Andes of South America. High in the Andes, the Incas performed a kind of alchemy upon the mountains themselves. They looked at a near-vertical slope of rock and scree and saw the potential for a vertical garden, a feat of engineering that transformed the destructive power of the highlands into a cradle of life. Their vast steppe terraces, like those at Moray, were far more than simple farm plots. They formed a breathtaking agricultural laboratory, a series of concentric circular depressions that descended deep into the earth. Each level created its own unique microclimate, with temperatures varying by several degrees from the top ring to the bottom. This allowed the Inca to experiment with and cultivate a staggering variety of crops, from hardy potatoes at the cooler, higher elevations to maize and coca in the warmer, sheltered basins below. These terraces were not just holding back dirt, they were living, breathing geotextiles. The stone-retaining walls absorbed heat during the day, radiating it back through the cold mountain nights to protect tender plants from frost. More importantly, they completely re-engineered the relationship between water and the steep terrain. An intricate, stone-lined network of canals and aqueducts acted as a circulatory system, carefully distributing precious meltwater from distant glaciers across this man-made landscape. The water did not simply flood the fields, it was guided with exquisite precision, its flow controlled to prevent both erosion and wasteful runoff. The true genius, however, lay beneath the surface. The Incas possessed a profound, practical understanding of capillary action. They constructed their terraces with deep, porous subsoils beneath the topsoil. This design acted like a wick, drawing moisture upward from the damp lower layers directly to the plant roots. This brilliant method minimized evaporation under the intense high-altitude sun, ensuring every drop of water was used with maximum efficiency. They had transformed the violent energy of mountain runoff, which would normally carve gullies and wash away soil, into a gentle, life-giving percolation that stabilized the entire mountainside. This was a holistic mastery of mountain hydrology and soil science, a system that worked in complete harmony with the forces of nature. The most powerful testament to its vitality is that many of these ancient terraces are still cultivated today, centuries after the empire that built them fell. They continue to produce food, their stone bones and water channels still perfectly functional, a living legacy of engineering that truly understood how to turn stone and water into a system of enduring life. The sprawling metropolis of Angkor was a city born from water. It was the colossal heart of the Khmer Empire, and its lifeblood was a hydraulic network of staggering complexity, one that managed the rhythm of the monsoon itself. For centuries, the sheer scale of this system was hidden beneath a dense jungle canopy, its true form only guessed at. Then came LiDAR, a laser-scanning technology that stripped away the trees to reveal a secret grid etched into the earth. This was not a random collection of canals and ponds. It was a single, integrated machine covering over 1,000 square kilometers, a masterpiece of hydrological planning designed to capture, store, and redistribute water with breathtaking precision. At its core were the immense barrays, artificial reservoirs so vast they could only be comprehended from the air. The largest of these, the West Barray, is an 8-kilometer long body of water built with earthen dikes that still hold strong today. This was the Empire's battery, a strategic reserve that captured the torrential monsoon rains and stored this liquid energy for the long dry season. Canals, some over 30 meters wide, acted as arteries, channeling this stored water to feed a vast and continuous rice cultivation system that could support a population of nearly 1 million people. The system was a triumph of practical necessity, providing irrigation, flood control, and a transportation network that bound the city together. But to see it as merely functional is to miss its deepest truth. The entire landscape was a sacred map. The central temple, Angkor Wat, was more than a building. It was the cosmic axis representing Mount Meru, the home of the gods in Hindu belief. The surrounding moat and the giant barrays represented the mythical oceans that encircled the universe. Every time a farmer opened a sluice gate to water his field, he was not just practicing agriculture. He was participating in a ritual that mirrored the cosmic order, reinforcing the connection between the earthly kingdom and the divine. This fusion of spiritual cosmology and hard-nosed engineering created a system of living energy in the most profound sense. It was a physical machine that fed a million mouths and a metaphysical one that nourished an empire's soul. Contemplating the sheer labor involved is humbling. This was not the work of a single ruler, but the accumulated genius of generations, a covenant between a civilization and its environment, written not on paper, but across the very skin of the earth. A single, brilliant idea could traverse continents without a single map. The great mystery of ancient engineering is not just the structures themselves, but how the knowledge to build them appeared in cultures separated by vast oceans and impassable mountains. How did the concept of the water screw, a simple yet profound device for lifting water, emerge in both Hellenistic Greece and, centuries before, in the irrigated fields of ancient Babylon? Was this independent invention a testament to the universal human logic that arises when observing water and gravity, or was it evidence of a lost thread of shared wisdom, passed along the bustling trade routes of the ancient world like the Silk Road? This was more than the transfer of a blueprint. It was the migration of a mindset. The technology of the Kanat, that subterranean river, did not stay in Persia. It flowed westward to the oases of Egypt and Morocco, and astonishingly, eastward across the world to appear in the high deserts of the Americas, where the native peoples of what is now Peru constructed eerily similar filtration galleries called puquios. This was not a coincidence. It was the movement of a philosophy, a way of seeing the potential in stone and water that was carried by the most valuable cargo of all, skilled engineers. These master builders were the intellectual royalty of their age. They traveled with armies, were sponsored by kings, and were sought after by city-states desperate for a secure water supply. A single Mukani from Persia, with his intuitive grasp of slopes and aquifers, could teach a community an entire new way of life. The exchange happened in bustling port cities and at remote desert caravanserais, where travelers and scholars would share stories not just of goods and gods, but of clever ways to trap a flood or calm a raging river. This knowledge was then adapted, refined, and improved through generations of local trial and error. A technique that worked in the mountains of Anatolia might be subtly altered to suit the monsoonal plains of India, but the core principle of working with the land remained unchanged. Understanding this slow, global diffusion completely reframes these achievements. They were not the isolated wonders of singular, genius cultures, but a collective human inheritance, a conversation in stone and water that spanned the globe. This shared foundation of principles makes the unique cultural expressions that followed all the more fascinating to behold. A river can be conquered, or it can be convinced. This fundamental choice defines the great divergence between the engineering spirits of Rome and China. The Roman aqueduct is a declaration of power, a straight-line assertion of human logic over the messy contours of the land. Its massive arches stride across valleys in a triumphant, unbroken procession from source to city, a monumental testament to the will of an empire that sought to order the world. This was engineering in service of the state, designed for scale, efficiency, and public utility on an unprecedented level. The Roman bath complex, with its roaring furnaces and precisely calibrated hot and cold pools, was a temple to this pragmatic mastery, a space where nature's elements were meticulously controlled for human comfort and social order. The goal was undeniable success, measured in the volume of water delivered and the number of citizens served. Yet half a world away, an entirely different conversation with water was unfolding. In China, engineers guided by Taoist and Confucian principles saw their work not as an imposition of will, but as an act of alignment with the natural kai, or vital energy, of the land. Their philosophy was one of minimal intervention, of working with the river's own inclinations rather than against them. The supreme example of this is the Dujiangyan irrigation system, a masterpiece that has been gently taming the Min River for over 2,000 years. Instead of confronting the torrent with a massive dam, the Chinese engineers chose a path of brilliant subtlety. They carved a channel through a mountain to divert a portion of the flow, and then constructed a long, wedge-shaped levee known as the fish snout that naturally splits the river, guiding water into the irrigation network while letting the main current carry away silt and excess water. It was a system designed to partner with the river's own dynamics. Where Roman channels were straight and forceful, Chinese watercourses were often deliberately meandering. These gentle curves were not a sign of imprecision, but of profound understanding. They slowed the water's velocity, reducing its erosive power and allowing sediment to settle out naturally before the water reached the field. This was the philosophy of Wu Wei, or effortless action in physical form, bending like water around obstacles rather than shattering against them. Both traditions created systems of living energy that supported millions and lasted for millennia. One speaks the language of conquest, the other the poetry of conversation. Their enduring legacy is a powerful reminder that our most profound technological solutions are never purely technical. They are always and inevitably an expression of a culture's deepest beliefs about its place in the world. The sky itself was a blueprint for their water systems. Ancient engineers saw a direct, flowing connection between the celestial rivers of stars and the terrestrial rivers on Earth, designing their works to be conduits for this cosmic exchange. For the Nabateans at Petra, the placement of their most crucial water channels and sacred tombs was no accident. Recent studies suggest key structures align with the rising and setting of the sun during solstices, moments that may have signaled the optimal times to prepare their intricate dams and cisterns for the coming seasonal rains. They were not just capturing water, they were synchronizing their entire hydraulic system with the clockwork of the heavens. This celestial choreography reached its zenith in ancient Egypt. The lifeblood of their civilization, the annual flooding of the Nile, was so perfectly timed it formed the very foundation of their calendar. Their temple complexes, often dedicated to water deities like Osiris, were precisely oriented. The Temple of Amun-Re at Karnak, for instance, aligns with the midwinter solstice sunrise, a celestial event deeply tied to the cyclical rebirth of the land and the river's fertile inundation. The star Sirius, whose heliacal rising heralded the coming flood, was watched with utmost reverence. Their engineering was an act of cosmic participation, a way to ensure the celestial signal for water was met with a prepared and welcoming landscape. In the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya took this integration even further. Their cities were laid out as sacred cosmograms with reservoirs and cenotes, those natural sinkholes that provided water, positioned in specific relation to the movements of Venus and the star cluster known as the Pleiades. The appearance of the Pleiades on the horizon marked the start of the rainy season, a pivotal moment for agriculture. By aligning their water management with these cosmic cycles, they were doing more than predicting weather. They were affirming that the rain falling from the sky was part of the same great cycle that governed the stars. This universal perspective reveals the ultimate meaning of living energy. It was not a force contained within the Earth alone. It was a cosmic current flowing from the depths of space through the planets and stars, down into the mountain springs and the river floods. The ancient engineer's sacred task was to build the vessels to catch this energy, to create a point of contact where the celestial and the terrestrial could meet. And the primary vessel for this cosmic exchange was the very stone they so carefully chose and shaped. The stones themselves were active participants in the flow of energy. Ancient builders selected their materials with a discernment that went far beyond simple strength or availability. This was a deep, intuitive form of material science, an alchemy where the innate properties of rock were seen as vital to the system's very soul. In Egypt, the choice of granite for obelisks and the inner chambers of pyramids was a monumental decision. Granite is rich in quartz crystals, a mineral we now know possesses piezoelectric properties. This means that when compressed or subjected to vibration, it can generate a subtle electrical charge. The sheer weight of the pyramid's core stones, constantly under immense pressure, combined with the resonant frequencies of sound waves moving through the chambers, could have created a faint, humming energy field throughout the structure. Was this a deliberate effect, a way to energize the very space for spiritual or healing purposes? This conscious selection extended to water systems as well. The limestone used to line Roman aqueducts was not just durable, it is slightly soluble in water, and as the flow passed over it, minute amounts of calcium and other minerals would dissolve into the current. This subtly altered the water's chemistry, potentially making it taste better and even conferring health benefits, a slow-release mineral supplement engineered into the aqueduct itself. For the builders of Mohenjo-Daro, the choice was about absolute integrity. The Great Bath, the centerpiece of their advanced urban sanitation, was founded on slabs of basalt. This dense volcanic stone is virtually impermeable, forming a perfect watertight seal that prevented any precious water from seeping back into the earth. It was the ideal material for a sacred pool meant to hold ritual purity. In countless cultures, stones were not inert. They were believed to hold a life force, a sacred energy that could be activated by intention and precise placement. The selection process was therefore a ritual. A master builder would tap a stone and listen to its ring, feeling its density and grain, searching for the specific block that resonated with the purpose of the construction. This was the true role of the ancient engineer, a master of materials who understood their hidden potentials and knew how to invite those qualities into a collaborative partnership. The proof of their success is written in the stones that remain. The longevity of these structures, standing for thousands of years while our modern concrete crumbles after decades, is a silent testament to a wisdom that saw the living spirit within the rock. A system of stone and water is only as strong as the human hands that care for it. The true longevity of these ancient marvels rested on a hidden foundation of social organization, a living tradition of maintenance passed down through generations. This was never a build-and-forget endeavor. It was a sacred covenant between a community and its life source, a promise etched not in stone but in daily practice. In Rome, the flow of water into the city was guarded by a specialized guild known as the Aquarii. These highly skilled workers were the physicians of the aqueducts, constantly patrolling the massive channels, clearing blockages, repairing cracks, and ensuring the vital current never faltered. Their work was a perpetual, quiet battle against sediment, plant roots, and the slow, patient decay of time. The survival of the entire metropolis depended on their vigilance. This principle of centralized, dedicated upkeep was echoed in the legendary Marib Dam of ancient Yemen. For over 1,000 years, this massive earthen structure harnessed seasonal floods to irrigate the desert, turning the region into a fertile paradise. Its maintenance was the primary responsibility of the Sabaean kingdom, a core function of the state that required immense resources and coordination. The eventual collapse of the dam after centuries of service was not just a structural failure. It is remembered in the Quran as a divine punishment and marked a historical catastrophe that led to the dispersal of its people and the end of a civilization. The system's energy died when its social contract broke. In stark contrast, the rice terraces of Bali have flourished for more than a millennium under a very different model. Here, the intricate Subak irrigation system is not managed by a king or an emperor, but by a democratic council of farmers. This water temple association meets regularly to make collective decisions, allocating water shares, scheduling planting, and organizing the cleaning of canals. Disputes are resolved through discussion, and every farmer has a voice. This decentralized, cooperative structure has proven incredibly resilient, balancing the needs of individuals with the health of the whole watershed. The energy here is profoundly social, a current of shared responsibility that flows as reliably as the water itself. This reveals the ultimate secret. The stone channels and aqueducts were merely the physical vessels. The real living energy was the knowledge, the trust, and the shared commitment to stewardship woven into the fabric of society. When that social cohesion frayed, even the grandest engineering eventually returned to dust. A haunting silence now hangs over the barrays of Angkor and the aqueducts of Rome. These marvels of living energy did not simply vanish in a single cataclysm. They were often abandoned by degrees, a slow unraveling that holds a dark mirror to our own time. The most insidious enemy was a shifting climate. In the American Southwest, the ancestral Pueblones, once known as the Anasazi, constructed intricate networks of check dams and canals to farm an arid land. Then a monumental drought lasting for decades settled over the region. Their carefully captured rainwater simply ceased to fall. The underground water tables sank beyond reach, and their springs dried up. A civilization that had mastered water conservation was ultimately starved by a climate shift it could not adapt to, their great houses left empty to the desert wind. In Persia, a similar story unfolded. The Kanats, those life-giving subterranean rivers, rely on a consistent recharge from mountain aquifers. A prolonged drought means the mother well slowly runs dry, and the tunnel, no matter how perfectly engineered, carries only dust. The system does not break. It is simply rendered mute, its voice stolen by a changing sky. Political collapse could be just as fatal. The Roman aqueducts were a creation of the state, maintained by a vast imperial bureaucracy and funded by a robust economy. As the empire crumbled, that centralized authority dissolved. The legions that protected the water sources were withdrawn. The tax revenue that paid the aquarii dried up. The specialized knowledge of maintenance was lost within a generation. The great channels cracked, filled with silt, and fell silent, not because their engineering was flawed, but because the social and political machine that powered them had broken down. For the Maya, it was likely a fatal cocktail of these pressures. Centuries of intensive agriculture may have led to soil exhaustion and erosion, while a growing population placed unsustainable demands on their reservoirs. This environmental stress, combined with intense warfare between competing city-states, shattered the social order. The priest-kings who coordinated water management lost their authority, and the delicate balance of their cosmic hydraulic system collapsed into chaos. In every case, the true failure was rarely the stone or the water. It was the rupture of the human covenant, the breaking of the chain of knowledge and collective responsibility. The shift was profound, a move away from seeing water as a sacred partner in a system of living energy, toward treating it as a mere resource to be extracted until it was gone. The lesson from the dust is clear. The most brilliant technology is ultimately fragile. It cannot survive the loss of the wisdom, the cooperation, and the reverence that first gave it life. Laser beams fired from an aircraft are now peeling back the jungle canopy to reveal the ghost of a civilization. LiDAR technology, which stands for light detection and ranging, is acting like an X-ray for the landscape, uncovering the staggering true scale of ancient water management. In Cambodia, what appeared as isolated temples around Angkor Wat is now revealed to be a vast, low-density urban sprawl, all integrated with a hydraulic grid of canals, reservoirs, and farmsteads that covered over 1,000 square kilometers. This was not a city in the traditional sense. It was a carefully engineered watershed, a machine for living built entirely from water and earth. The same technology is uncovering similar wonders in the Amazon, where vast networks of causeways and canals suggest a previously unknown scale of pre-Columbian civilization that actively shaped its environment. Meanwhile, on the ground, another tool is listening for echoes of the past. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses of energy into the earth, mapping the subterranean world without a single shovel breaking the soil. It is revealing the precise, branching pathways of long-buried Kanats in Persia and the intricate foundation stones of forgotten Roman aqueducts, allowing us to virtually reconstruct these systems and understand their full complexity. This is not just archaeology, it is a form of technological resurrection, giving voice to these silent, sleeping networks. The very materials these ancients used are now the subject of intense scientific study. For decades, we wondered how Roman concrete harbors, pummeled by seawater for 2,000 years, could become stronger over time. The answer, recently uncovered, lies in the use of quicklime and volcanic ash. When tiny cracks form and seawater seeps in, it reacts with this special mixture to form new, crystalline minerals that instantly fill the fissures. The concrete, in effect, heals itself. This discovery is now inspiring a revolution in modern construction, with engineers developing self-healing concretes that could end the cycle of perpetual repairs on our own crumbling infrastructure. The validation continues in the field of hydrology, where computer models now confirm the empirical genius of ancient practices. The gentle, meandering curves the Chinese engineered into their canals are proven to be the most efficient way to reduce water velocity and prevent erosion. The precise slopes of Roman aqueducts, calculated with simple tools, are confirmed as optimal for maintaining a steady, sediment-carrying flow. They were not just lucky. They were brilliant observers of nature, and our most advanced science is now catching up to their intuitive understanding. This convergence of past and present is giving rise to the field of biomimicry, where we look to ancient systems as blueprints for a sustainable future. The Stepwells of India, with their passive evaporative cooling, are inspiring new designs for energy-free air conditioning. The principles of the Kanat, which cools water as it flows underground, are being studied for modern geothermal applications. We are finally beginning to see that these were not primitive technologies. They were sophisticated, time-tested solutions to the very problems we face today. The living energy they harnessed was real, a profound collaboration with the physics of the planet itself. A Kanat does not force water to the surface. It simply invites it, mimicking the slow, patient seepage of a natural aquifer. This is the essence of true biomimicry, a design philosophy we now champion as revolutionary, yet one that ancient engineers practiced as simple common sense. Their entire approach was a form of deep listening to the natural world. The Incan terraces were not imposed upon the Andes. They became the Andes, their layered stone and soil replicating the stable, self-regulating structure of a natural mountainside. In China, the meandering irrigation channels were not a compromise with the landscape. They were a deliberate echo of a river's own intelligent path, a design that reduces erosion and maximizes efficiency by following nature's own blueprint. These were not just clever techniques, they were manifestations of a core principle that the most resilient systems are those that emulate the patterns already perfected by the planet over millions of years. Today, this ancient wisdom is experiencing a powerful resurgence. Modern architects facing the urgent challenges of climate change are looking back to these models for inspiration. They are designing buildings that incorporate stepwell-like cooling towers, where the simple evaporation of water dramatically reduces the need for energy-intensive air conditioning. Urban planners are moving away from concrete storm drains that violently shunt rainfall out to sea. Instead, they are creating bioswales and permeable landscapes that allow water to slowly infiltrate the ground, just as it would in a natural forest, recharging aquifers and preventing floods. Farmers are rediscovering the genius of agroecology, designing polyculture fields that work with local water tables and soil biology, much like the integrated chinampas of the Aztecs. The goal is no longer to conquer nature with brute force, but to collaborate with it through intelligent design. This application of ancient principles is perhaps their most vital legacy for our time. It reframes our entire quest for sustainability. The problem is not a lack of technology, but a disconnect from a fundamental truth those earlier builders understood instinctively. Stone and water are not separate resources to be extracted. They are part of a single, interconnected energy system. When we design our cities and infrastructure as if we are outside of that system, we create fragility and waste. When we design as a part of it, we create resilience and abundance. Their work stands as a timeless testament, proving that the most elegant and enduring solutions are not those that shout our dominance over the world, but those that whisper in harmony with it. A Roman priest would not break ground for an aqueduct until he had read the will of the gods in the flight of birds. This was not a quaint ceremony preceding the real work. It was the first, most critical step of the engineering process itself. For these ancient builders, the technical act of moving water was a sacred dialogue, a ritual that consecrated the landscape and invited the divine into the very flow of the system. The spiritual and the technical were not separate disciplines. They were two currents of the same river. In India, the breathtaking stepwell of Rani Kai Vav was not merely a water storage facility. It was a temple inverted into the earth, its every surface carved with hundreds of divine figures, from protective deities to nurturing mother goddesses. To descend its steps for water was to undertake a pilgrimage, a physical and spiritual journey into the womb of the earth to draw forth life. The well was not just built. It was inhabited by the sacred, making its preservation a matter of faith, not just utility. This fusion created a powerful cultural safeguard. A community might neglect a mundane reservoir, but it would not abandon the home of a god. This symbiotic relationship ensured the technology was respected and maintained across generations for reasons that transcended simple practicality. The sacred provided the enduring why that guaranteed the how would survive. In Bali, this principle is still alive today. The Subak irrigation system is governed by water temple priests. The opening and closing of a water gate is not a mere administrative task. It is a ritual act, a prayer for balance and abundance offered to the goddess Dewi Donu, she who rules the waters of Lake Bata. The farmer's schedule is not set by a spreadsheet, but by a calendar of temple ceremonies that synchronize the entire watershed. This is not superstition. It is a profound, operational philosophy that recognizes the functional success of the system as inseparable from its spiritual and ecological harmony. The water flows because the community is in right relationship with the cosmos. This perspective stands in stark contrast to our modern world, where we neatly compartmentalize science and spirituality. We see a water treatment plant as a purely technical facility. They saw their aqueducts and wells as living arteries of a conscious world. The energy in their systems was living precisely because it was understood as divinely sourced and ritually honored. The stone held memory, the water carried spirit, and the engineer's role was to facilitate that sacred conversation. This holistic view fostered a deep cultural commitment that mere economics could never sustain. To understand why these systems endured for 1,000 years, we must look beyond the stone and mortar to the prayers that were woven into their very foundations. The Min River once raged through Sichuan province, a torrent of brown water and silt that brought either flood or famine with each passing season. Then, in the 3rd century before the Common Era, a governor named Lai Bing confronted this chaotic force. He did not seek to conquer it with a massive, rigid dam. Instead, he chose to converse with it. His solution, the Dujiangyan irrigation system, is not a relic. It is a living, breathing entity that has calmly regulated the river's flow for over 2,300 years. The system's elegance is disarming. It consists of 3 simple, brilliant components working in perfect harmony. First, the yuzui, or fish snout levee. This is a long, wedge-shaped dike built from woven bamboo cages filled with stones. It sits in the middle of the river, its pointed tip naturally splitting the powerful current into 2 streams, an inner channel and an outer channel. This single, intelligent shape does the work of 1,000 laborers, guiding the water exactly where it needs to go without fighting its momentum. The inner stream flows toward the second component, the Biomimicry, or precious bottleneck channel. This is a man-made conduit carved painstakingly through a mountain. It acts as the intake, funneling a controlled portion of the river's flow into a vast network of canals that irrigate the Chengdu Plain. But what happens during the torrential summer floods? This is where the third piece of genius reveals itself. The Fascian, or flying sand spillway, is a low weir that connects the inner channel back to the outer river. When the water level rises too high, it simply spills over this weir, carrying with it the suspended silt and stones that would otherwise clog the Biomimicry channel. The river literally cleans itself. The system has an almost organic intelligence. It uses the water's own energy to scour away sediment and regulate its volume, operating without a single moving part that could wear out or break. This profound resilience has allowed it to survive countless earthquakes and catastrophic floods that would have shattered a more rigid, forceful structure. It is the ultimate expression of the Taoist philosophy of Wu Wei, or effortless action. Lai Bing's masterpiece does not command the river. It understands the river, and in doing so, it persuades the water to manage itself. Today, this ancient wonder continues to water over 5,300 square kilometers of some of the most productive farmland on Earth. It is more than a monument. It is a perpetual lesson in humility and harmony, a system of living energy that has truly become eternal. The allure of ancient mysteries often tempts us toward fantastical explanations. Yet the genuine marvel of these engineers lies not in imagined super sciences, but in the tangible, verifiable brilliance of their methods. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. While the idea of it as a giant power plant is a captivating story, the overwhelming archaeological evidence, from burial chambers to funerary texts, points to its primary role as a tomb and a profound symbolic monument. This reality does not diminish its grandeur. In fact, it elevates it. The true wonder is that human hands, without electricity or advanced machinery, achieved such perfection. The same principle applies to their stonework. The mind-boggling precision of Inca walls or Egyptian sarcophagi is frequently attributed to lost technologies or even extraterrestrial intervention. The more grounded and ultimately more impressive truth is the power of unparalleled skill. Generations of artisans, using simple copper chisels, stone hammers, and abrasive sand, could achieve those mirror-smooth surfaces through a lifetime of dedicated practice. It was not laser-like speed, but the relentless, patient application of simple tools that produced those seamless joins. Their genius was in perfecting the art of the possible. Similarly, the celestial alignments of structures from Stonehenge to the Sun Temple of Kanat clearly served practical and spiritual purposes deeply woven into their cultures. They were giant calendars marking solstices for agriculture, or cosmograms mapping a sacred understanding of the universe. To reduce these alignments to points on a speculative global energy grid is to overlook their profound, documented role in daily life and state religion. This clear-eyed perspective is not a dismissal of their intellect, but a celebration of its human scale. The real magic was in their deep observation of the world, their cumulative knowledge passed down through generations, and their incredible patience. By letting go of the fringe theories, we can finally see their achievements for what they were, and what they still are, a masterclass in sustainable design and resilience that our own civilization is struggling to relearn. A citizen of Rome did not just drink water, they drank from a mountain. Every public fountain, every bath was a direct physical connection to a distant spring, a tangible reminder that their personal survival was woven into a vast and benevolent system. This daily reality shaped consciousness itself. To live within such a landscape was to internalize a sense of profound security and order. The world was not a chaotic, hostile place. It was a carefully tuned organism of which you were a part, a cosmos where human ingenuity and natural force collaborated to sustain life. For an Incan farmer tending potatoes on a high terrace, the mountain was no longer an impassable wall of rock. It was a generous, sculpted provider. Their daily labor was not a battle against the land, but a partnership with its transformed energy. This constant interaction with gracefully harnessed nature cultivated a mindset of stewardship, not domination. You cared for the canals because they cared for you. You respected the rain because it was a partner in the harvest. This fostered a deep, non-verbal understanding of balance and cyclical time. Your personal rhythm synced with the slow release of water from the terraces and the seasonal filling of the reservoirs. Your identity was rooted in your role within this living system. Now consider the opposite reality. The uncertainty of a failing well or a poisoned river breeds a very different psychology. It generates a low hum of anxiety, a scarcity mindset that can turn communities inward and spark conflict over a dwindling resource. The ancient systems did more than hydrate crops and power cities. They hydrated the human spirit with a sense of place and purpose. They reinforced the idea that humanity was an integral, responsible participant in a living world. This deep-seated connection provided a psychological stability that our modern, often fragmented world struggles to replicate. We have gained incredible convenience, but we have lost the daily, tangible reassurance that we are part of a coherent, life-sustaining whole. Their legacy is not merely one of stone and water, but of a transformed consciousness. The ancient engineers left us a blueprint for a world where human ingenuity serves as a bridge, not a barrier, to the planet's own vitality. We have walked alongside the Roman aquarii in their silent vigil over the aqueducts, felt the communal spirit of the Balinese Subak councils, and marveled at the quiet persuasion of Lai Bing's river-taming masterpiece at Dujiangyan. These were not isolated feats of construction. They were integrated systems that converted the raw, untamed forces of the earth into the very substance of sustained, flourishing life. This deep harmony with natural principles, this profound understanding of place, and this unwavering commitment to the long view are the pillars of their timeless wisdom. They understood that true power is not the ability to dominate a landscape, but the wisdom to listen to it and to collaborate. The visionary engineer Buckminster Fuller once offered a guiding light for our own age. He said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." The ancients did precisely that. They built a model of living energy that rendered brute force and short-sighted extraction obsolete. Their work stands as a quiet, enduring challenge to our modern assumptions, inviting us to learn from their success. Let their wisdom inspire us to look at our own rivers, our own cities, and our own resources with new eyes, and to begin building our own resilient systems of living energy for the future. If this journey through the echoes of ancient water and stone has reshaped your view of the past and its profound potential, we would love to hear your reflections in the comments below. For more explorations into the mysteries that shape our world, subscribe and join us on the next adventure.